आपको कुछ प्रॉब्लम हो रही है? Okay. I don't have internet. No internet. जी जी. Okay. Come on. Okay. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. As-salatu was-salamu ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. So anybody remember what we discussed last week? You will go home and check the notes, right? So last week we discussed up to question number 66. We talked about some medical issues, and what we're discussing here are 100 questions that a husband to be or wife to be should ask each other before they get married in order to get to know each other, in order to minimize the possible risk involved. A lot of people these days, they talk to someone, they like them, but they feel like, I'm not sure if I feel comfortable enough and secure enough to go ahead with this big commitment. So one of the ways to get over that hump is to actually go through these 100 questions and cover all of these areas. So after we talked about the last, and again, if you missed the last session, you may want to go online on our YouTube channel and check it out. So we also have a number of questions about financial issues. And among them is, what is your definition of wealth? You can understand that it may differ from a person to another person. One person may consider themselves to be wealthy if they have enough to pay for their expenses and they don't have to, try to scrounge around at the end of the month. While another person may consider wealth to be like hundreds of millions of dollars, and until then, they are just poverty-stricken. Now, if these two type of people, if they come together in a marriage, if they don't discuss it and understand each other well and learn to live with it, they may have problems with each other. Because again, if someone whose definition of wealth is a lot of wealth, they may say, well, I will take it easy on work when I get wealthy. And the other person might say, we already are wealthy. Right? So a problem happens. How do you spend your money? This is a question that's very, very telling about a person. So most of us, if we had to put forward where we spend our money, every little penny in the last 1 month, or let's say 3 months, we would immediately know what type of person you are. And you would know what type of person I am by seeing what kind of stuff I spend my money on. Okay? How do you spend your money? How do you save your money? Some people, they are very, you could say, very wasteful, very open-handed. Maybe not even wasteful, but they're open-handed with money, while other people are very close-fisted. They don't let go of even a dollar. And again, these two different types of people coming together, you can understand it would be a problem. Okay? How do you think that your use of money will change after marriage? That's also important. Do you have any debts now? This is a very important question that needs to be asked point blank to both people, husband and wife. Do you have any debts? You need to disclose that. And then also, if you have debts, then what is your plan to pay it off? You can imagine a couple gets married and the wife finds out that the man that I married has $300,000 in debts. Does that affect her life? Absolutely, because he has to pay every penny towards that debt, which means that she may have been imagining that we will have this and we will have that, and they're not able to. The other way around as well, which is, the wife has debts. The wife has a lot of debts, and now the husband was expecting her to stay at home and take care of the house, raise the kids and whatnot. She says, yeah, I can do that, but I have $100,000 in debt. So if you can assume that debt and take responsibility for it, I can do these things. And he might say, well, why didn't you tell me this up front? And she might say, well, you didn't ask me. So it's a very important thing to ask straight up and get an answer. And if there are debts involved, then say, okay, what's the plan? And make sure that both parties agree to that plan. Do you use credit cards? Okay. And I guess the answer, most of us would say that in our day and age, most of us would say, yes, I use credit cards. But how do you use them? Okay. Some people, they use credit cards as buy now and worry about how to pay later. While other people would say, I use a credit card because of certain advantages of using a credit card, but I only use what I can pay in full balance every month and not hold a single dollar in balance. Now, even that is not the safest option because sometimes things happen. But it is the best advisable way if you are using credit cards, which is make sure that you don't hold any balance. People who say, okay, I'm just going to buy it now and then I will pay minimum payments, then that debt will not end and someone will have to help out in order to pay it off. Do you support the idea of taking loans to buy a home? Right? This is another important issue to discuss because different people have different values. For some people, home is a must no matter what they have to do. For some people, a home is a must, but they will limit themselves to Islamic finance options. For some people, even the Islamic finance options are somewhat, questionable. So they will say that, to me, buying a home is not important, but staying out of any doubtful interactions is more important to me. So whichever, of course, the first one is wrong, which is that, I will buy a home at any cost. This is, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us. But the other two, whatever it is, and even in the first one, if someone is like that, you can't change them, but you can decide that this is not a person that I want to be with. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us that this is to engage in war with Allah and His Messenger. Allah has declared war against this. So, at the very least, a person should have this that, look, I've made a mistake in the past, I've done it, I didn't know any better, there weren't any other options, but now that I know, I'm trying to refinance through Islamic options, so at least I can answer Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that, Ya Allah, I paid extra in order to get out of that haram. Ya Allah, forgive me for what I've done in the past. But for someone who has, I know of a couple who basically, one of their key reasons for divorce was this issue, which is that to one of them, buying a house was an absolute priority, and it didn't matter what option they used, while the other person said, well, we are both doctors, we only need to work 1 or 2 years, we don't have any kids, we can just save up enough and buy a house on cash with absolutely no doubt whatsoever. The other person said, no, I can't wait that long. Okay, so this was one of the things that broke them apart. Also, what are you expecting from your spouse financially? We talked about this a little bit before, which is, how are you splitting the family responsibilities? Finances, home responsibilities, children responsibilities. What do you expect from your spouse? Do you expect your spouse to contribute? How much? Or you don't expect them to contribute? They say, well, if you don't expect me to contribute, that's fine, but I still plan to work. And the husband says, yeah, that's fine with me, no problem. If he accepts that before marriage, he can't come after marriage and say, well, you have to, contribute this much or that much, because that's what they agreed on, okay, before marriage. Also, what is your financial responsibility in a marriage? So just to make sure that everybody understands what their responsibility is. The wife, sometimes, people, young kids, they don't understand that, look, it takes two people a full-time effort to run a household, right? Especially when you have kids, you have to have a full-time commitment to running your house. So one person usually goes out and works their behind off, and the other person works just as much, but inside the house, taking care of the house, keeping the house clean, cooking, all that stuff that needs to be done in order to have a good family home environment at home. If both parties don't understand how important that is and they don't decide who's going to do what, they're going to have problems later on, and I've seen too many cases like that as well. Do you support the idea of a working wife, if that's the issue there? If so, how do you think a dual income family should manage funds? Okay, this is another issue, which is, okay, two people are working, and now they're fighting over how to manage the money that they're making. Okay, so there's usually the person who's making less wants the person who's making more to share all of their earnings equally. Okay, so you're making $20, I'm making $80, and the person who's making $20 says, both of our money should go in the same account, and we both have $50 each to spend from that. Okay, and the other person says, well, it's not really fair. I'm happy to put in $20, like you are putting in $20, and the rest of it, I can manage my own way. So once you're already married, you have kids, it gets very messy. So if this is the expectation, discuss it beforehand, agree on a plan, you will have no problem after. Do you currently use a budget to manage your finances? Okay, if somebody says budget, what is that? What do you think about that? Someone doesn't use a budget, this person overspends. This person is going to run into financial problems because they just spend without looking at, okay, how much I need to spend, how much I have. So it will show you a little bit of the person's maturity. Are they ready to be an adult in life? Who are the people to whom you are financially responsible? Okay, like, so person gets married and finds out that my husband is supporting 5 siblings and their families back home. Now, nothing wrong with that, except that when it's a surprise to you, then the wife says, well, I thought that I married someone who can afford, the basic necessities of life here, and here we are pinching every penny because you're supporting 5 families back home. I don't have a problem with that, but you should have told me about it before, so I would have adjusted my expectation or maybe decided that this is not the right person for me. So if you have financial responsibilities, you need to discuss that up front as well. Now, a number of issues with regards to children and offspring, raising children. Do you support the idea of utilizing babysitters and maids? Okay, so, I'm sure people have different views, but, I personally feel very uncomfortable leaving my children with anybody, especially like a hired babysitter or something like that. I mean, I could probably, it would have to be like the last day on earth so for something like that, for me to accept that. We'll make our own schedule to manage our kids, but another person might say, well, what's the big deal? I've been doing it all my life. My parents used maids. We used to go out. They used to go out and watch a movie while we had a maid from a babysitter from the neighborhood watching us. So now 2 people could have different values, could have a problem. Do you want to have children? If yes, that's good. If not, why? Again, both people need to be upfront and honest. Okay, what are their plans? What are they thinking about? To best of your understanding, are you able to have children? Okay, to someone, usually young people, or also somebody who's a little bit up there in age where their fertility might be in question, this might be a question worth exploring a bit more if that's important to you to have children and you're marrying someone like that, male or female. Do you believe in abortion in your family? Do you have children now? Okay, this is another one of those point blank question. Like somebody might say, hey, I'm 20 years old, you're 19 years old. What do you mean I have children? Well, you never know. We're living in the modern world and there are surprises all the time. Later on, a person might say, why didn't you tell me? And they might say, you never asked me. Right? So they might be selectively silent about a certain issue and you only find out later on. What is your relationship with your children now, if you have them? Okay, do you see them? Do you not see them? Do they come home every weekend? All of those type of issues need to be discussed. What is your relationship with their parent? That's a big problem. In many people, if they go through a divorce and they have an ex-wife or ex-husband, few people that I have seen are mature enough to accept their ex-wife or ex-husband having moved on. Okay? They have jealousy issues. They have insecurity issues. Even though they divorced them, they fought day and night. They broke up the family, and now that person wants to move on. They want to create problems over there as well, sometimes. Sometimes it might be another person creating problems as well. So if you are getting into a situation like that, it's important to get to understand what exactly you're getting into. Sometimes it might be a good idea to say, look, I want to meet your ex-wife. I want to meet your ex-wife and say, hey, this is who I am. This is, what I'm bringing to the table. And your kids are going to be spending, if I end up marrying this man, he's your ex-husband, and he's the parent of your children, I'm going to be involved in it. Let's talk. Are we on the same page? Are you going to create a lot of drama? Things like that. Before you have made a serious commitment of getting married, it might help make the other person feel like, okay, this is a person who's upfront in their communication, and I can talk to them, they can talk to me. So things of that nature could really help. Okay, what is going on? Okay, let's try this. What is the best method of raising children? Okay, raising children, unfortunately, many people, and I would say that I could even put myself in there, which is that when I had my children, when I had my first child, I didn't really ever attend any training on how to raise a child. And when I started to run into problems, like my young daughter not wanting to wear her seatbelt. So what do you do in this case? So a lot of us, we don't really attend any training about that, but we should be willing to go and learn. So I went and I looked up, I said, okay, what are other parents doing about this issue? Okay, this is a child, you're going on a long road trip, it's not safe for them to be just walking around. So what do you do? So somebody said, hey, there's a little trick that you have to do. 1 time, 2 times, and your kid will learn to wear their seatbelt. And that really helped a lot. So to ask this question, okay, what is the best method of raising children? It might show you something about the other person. Okay, what are they thinking? And what is the best method of disciplining children? Okay, many people come from different backgrounds. In some households, it's okay to punish your children, to yell at them, to scream at them, to hit them. In other households, it's completely not acceptable, and you never do that. Now, 2 people coming from different backgrounds, coming together, did not ever thought about this issue, did not agree on how they are going to handle it, it can be very difficult for them as well. It can almost, break up or put their own relationship with each other at risk because of how the children, one person might be thinking, I'm just raising my children the way my parents raised me. And the other person might say, well, I don't think that that's the right way of raising children, all right? So best is discuss it up front. How were you raised? There's a question right there, right? Okay, how were you raised? I remember, we had someone in our somebody we knew who his dad was the strictest dad we'd ever, he used to scare, the everything out of us. He was so tough on them. So if this kid who was raised by such a dad, when this kid becomes a dad, his default way to raise his children will be most likely the way his dad raised him. Or if he felt that his dad went overboard in being strict, then most likely this kid, when he grows up, he's going to say, I'm going to be opposite of what my dad did. Okay? So to discuss with a person, okay, how were you raised? It might be a very good starting point. And if a person says, well, I was raised in an abusive household. So what do you do in this case? In this case, this person, they need a lot of therapy to recover from their experience and to not overcompensate from their experience to their kids. They might say, well, my parents, didn't ever buy me a pencil. I had to go in the street and I had to work in somebody's house and get like 1 rupee to go and buy a pencil. So now I'm not going to give my children that experience. So now that kid says, Mom, I want an iPad pencil. And mom or dad goes immediately and buys it to them, gives them everything that they asked for. In a way, they're overcompensating for what happened to them, but now this is also not helping. Okay, so it's important to have these discussions. How were you disciplined? Do you believe in spanking children? If you do, under what circumstances? Do you believe in public schools for your children? Do you believe in Islamic schools for your children? Do you believe in homeschooling for your children? If so, who should be the one doing it? What type of relationship should your children have with non-Muslim classmates and friends? Would you send your children to visit their extended family if they lived in another state or country? What type of relationship do you want your children to have with all of their grandparents? And this is also, unfortunately, a dying thing in our time, which is that our kids don't know our parents. And this is a sad reality, and there's actually a lot of research and you could say wisdom that can pass from grandparents to grandchildren. But that is something that is not happening very much, unfortunately. And lastly, if there are members of my family that are not Muslim, that are of a different culture or race, what type of relationship do you want to have with them? Okay, so just to set all the expectations right. Now, after we do these 100 questions, I ask them a question. Have you reviewed the domestic violence document? I give them a document, and I tell them, okay, this covers all basic information about domestic violence and domestic abuse. The idea is that if you don't know what abuse is, you might engage in it, or it might happen to you and you may not realize that what's happening to me is abuse. Okay? So I want to mention that we're going to be talking about some difficult topics about the area of domestic violence and abuse. And we're going to be giving some examples that might be triggering for some people. So if there are any parents, I know some people watch from home as well. So if there are any parents that are watching with children or minors that might not be old enough to understand this, this would be a time to make a call and say, you know what, let the parents watch it first. If they feel comfortable enough, then they can let their kids watch it later as well. We're also going to be talking a little bit about physical forms of abuse of adult nature. So just consider yourself warned. So preventing and stopping domestic abuse. So do you think that Islam recognizes domestic abuse or violence? Can anybody give us any type of ayat or ahadith about it? I'm sure you've heard them. So Islam addresses not necessarily domestic abuse with that name, but Islam addresses oppression against anyone as a very serious sin. Oppression against anyone. Also aggression, wrongdoing, harsh treatment, harm or injury to anyone. The Prophet ﷺ said that a Muslim is one from whose hands and tongue the other Muslims are safe from. And the Prophet ﷺ said that oppression in this world is darkness in the hereafter. So when a person comes on a day of judgment and they need to cross the bridge over hellfire, and that bridge, the Prophet said, is thinner than a hair and sharper than a sword. And you would need light to know where you are stepping, because below it is hellfire and people will fall over. So at that time, the people who engaged in oppression against others, they will have a bubble of darkness around them that they won't know where they're stepping. And of course, what would that happen? You're going to step in the wrong place and you're going to fall over. May Allah protect us all. Allah tells us to treat each other with respect, compassion, and justice. And Allah and His Messenger remind us to be kind to women and children, especially, and warn against abusing the authority as head of the household. So this is specifically addressed to men, but this refers to anyone who is in a position of power. That anybody who's under you, you are the strong one, and there's someone who's weaker under your authority. You are a shepherd. And what did the Prophet ﷺ said? That each one of you, كُلُّكُمْ رَاعٍ وَكُلُّكُمْ مَسْئُولٌ عَنْ رَعِيَّتِهِ. Each one of you is a shepherd, is responsible, and each one of you is going to be questioned about the responsibilities that were given to you. If you oppress someone, you have to answer for that in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So domestic abuse, understanding what it is, normal conflict between a couple, or between even, you could say, parents, children, between co-workers, between roommates, all of that, it could be, for example, all of this is normal, what you see, which is disagreeing with each other, okay? You think that the wall should be yellow, the other person thinks the wall should be pink. That's normal. One or both people getting angry, that's normal. Things happen, we have all our things, you can get angry. Somebody or both parties could feel hurt from their conversations with each other. But there's no fear or intimidation or injury to one or the other. Now, what is abuse is that one party dominates the other. And normally, most of this stuff is about, basically, the key point is that it's the power dynamic, okay? In most cases, who is the powerful one in the family? Men or women? In most cases, men are the more powerful one due to their financial resources and due to physical strength. But this is not the only possibility. In many cases, the power dynamic might be different. So, for example, if there is a man, let's say, and I know of this case for real, someone who was brought from a foreign country and who is basically kind of held hostage by the promise of a green card. Now, this person feels that they cannot speak up or challenge or defend themselves until they get their green card. So the other person uses that to control them. Okay? So it can happen one way or another, but the vast majority of the cases are that men, because physically strong, have financial resources, tend to be the dominating one. Okay? But again, let's not limit ourselves to this. It could be men, it could be women. It could be, in most cases, of parent versus child abuse. In most cases, parents could be the abuser and the children could be the victims. But could it ever be the opposite? It could also be opposite as well, right? Especially think about it's all about the power dynamic. Who has the power? Okay? There comes a point where the children might be financially stronger than the parents. The parents might be dependent on the children for the finances. Sometimes you have physical power. Of course, parents, they are strong when the kids are young, but eventually the kids grow up and they are then stronger than the father. So it's all about the power dynamic. Fear of speaking up or challenging the other. So if one party disagrees with the other, that's fine. But if someone is afraid of speaking up, speaking their opinion to the other because they are worried about what will happen if I speak up, this is a red flag. Consequences for challenging may include threats, insults, or hitting. How dare you challenge me? How dare you disagree with me? Don't you know who I am? I'm the one who did this for you. I'm the one who did that for you. So meaning that this person doesn't realize that we are in a relationship and I don't necessarily own this person. Also, a form of abuse is public humiliation. Public humiliation is so for example, a person, in order to try to mess up the other person's reputation, they maybe have an outburst in front of the person's family or in front of their friends. You can all think about, I see brothers sitting here. Imagine that if you were at a picnic with all of your friends and their wives and their kids and your kids, and your wife started yelling and screaming at you. How humiliating would it be for you? You would say, look, we could have this entire thing at home. We could have this entire thing in the car. But when you're doing it here, it is basically like a nuclear option, because now all of his friends and family members basically will be a distancing that will take place. It will really hurt that person's reputation. And this is one of the weapons of the abuser, to threaten to ruin your reputation in front of your family and friends. Sometimes people, they will actually call up someone and they'll say, let me tell you what your brother has done. Although these are private family matters and this person is not in a position of helping in any way. Okay? And now all of these things from 1 to 4 that we mentioned as abuse, they could happen as a mistake, as a one-time incident. As even maybe it happened once a few years ago, then it happened again a few years later, maybe forgivable. But if it's happening as a pattern, then that is abuse. Okay? If it's all of these things or some of these things are regularly happening, then that is abuse. Who are the abusers? Abusers could be spouses, husband or wife, parent, adult or teenage child that can have power through translation or knowing the system, right? So sometimes you have like immigrant parents who don't speak the language, who don't know the system. And they have like a 16, 17-year-old kid who for some reason grew up here. They know the language, so they can control and they can have a power over these new people that just came. Sometimes in-laws could be the abusers. It could be other relatives, household help. In some cases, you have a maid coming in your house. And for some reason, you are so dependent on this person that this person starts to use their ability to help you as a weapon. And saying, okay, so think like this happens where there's like elderly people living in a house, and maybe their young son in another country has hired a maid to come and help them at home. And this maid comes in the house and realizes that these two old people are so weak they can't live without me. So they start to maybe take money from them, or all sorts of stuff could happen. Tutors. Sometimes it could be a tutor who is basically using that power dynamic. Sometimes it could be close family friends. Who are the victims? Victims, again, it could be anybody. Generally, women and children are the weaker ones, but men can be victims as well. So according to one resource, studies show that 1 in 4 women, which is about a quarter, and 1 in 7 men, about 13%, about half of a quarter, aged 18 and older in the US have been the victim of severe physical violence by an intimate partner in their lifetime. Okay, so what we're saying is that about 14% of men have been victims of physical violence at the hands of their wife or their intimate partner. And when it comes to women, because of the power dynamic, that number is double. Okay, that about 25% of the women have been the victim of severe physical violence. I know of a case where a brother got married to a sister, and this sister was she was a soldier in the army, and she was a trained fighter. Okay, so this sister complained to us that my husband ran away from home. We're like, what? What kind of husband runs away from home? So we called him and said, your wife is complaining that you have run away from home. What's the problem? He says that she is a trained fighter. If we ever get into a disagreement, she beats me up. So, I mean, it's funny, but, you know, if you were in that situation, it would not be funny. Abuse is done by the powerful one against the weak. So power, again, could be money, it could be influence, it could be physical power, it could be other forms of power. Men are often in power, but not always. So we'll talk about some forms of abuse in order for us to know. And again, this is all part of premarital counseling. We want every person getting married to go through this lecture today and the last 2 sessions, and that will give them a very good idea as to what they're getting into, and inshallah, the chances of them getting into these problems will be very slim. So, first form of abuse, the most commonly recognizable form of abuse is physical abuse. And that is neglecting physical needs, such as, food, starving, shelter, kicking somebody out of the house. And if this is happening, actually the person who is being abused, they have grounds to ask for a divorce. Okay, because if in a normal traditional marriage, it's the husband's responsibility to provide for his wife's basic needs. If he's not doing that, she can say that he's abusing me and he's not fulfilling my rights and I want out of this marriage. And it would be his fault, not her fault. Also, pinching, hitting, pushing, slapping, kicking, pulling hair, using weapons or household items like knife, belt, electric cord, hanger, rods. All of these things are unfortunately, lying around, and people use them when they are in these situations. Throwing objects, using physical restraints like tying somebody up. This is all forms of physical abuse. Also, even forced tickling. If you're tickling a child, that child doesn't like it. This is not right. Okay, it could be considered a form of physical abuse. Verbal, this is not always recognized as abuse, but this is probably the most common occurring form of abuse, which is insults, name calling, and mocking. In some cultures, you call people dog or female dog, okay, or donkey, himar, or monkey, and all sorts of different animals in order to basically put a person down, okay? Now, why is this considered verbal abuse? Why is it called abuse? I mean, why is it not just an argument? So again, it can happen once or twice. Everybody makes mistakes. None of us are perfect. But if it's happening regularly, what this does is that it actually destroys a person's self-image and self-confidence. So if you keep telling somebody that you are a failure in life, you are no good for anything, you are the laziest person I've ever seen, you will never pass your exams, you are so lazy, poor, whatever you want to say. If you keep saying that to a person, the power of words is that a person actually starts to believe it. Because you know what? Guess what? If I take 100 exams, how many am I going to do good at? Maybe if I'm a really good student, maybe I'll do good at 80, and maybe 20 I'll be like okay. Now, if somebody keeps telling me that you will never succeed in life, whenever I suffer a little failure, all of that comes back to me. And I start to feel like, yeah, they told me that I will never be a success, I will be a failure. So it starts to come back and starts to reinforce what they said. Although failures are part of regular life, right? So always putting somebody down is actually a form of verbal abuse, is a form of abuse. Psychological abuse. It is threats. Threats to divorce, to deport, to ruin reputation, to try to scare them in one way or another. Threats to take a second wife, meaning using it as like a threat to make her do things, saying, if you don't do this, I'm going to take a second wife. If you don't do this, I'm going to go home and I'm going to marry another woman, and you don't take care of me. If you don't do this, I will do that. So this is a type of threat. Offensive jokes. So let's say that you marry someone who comes from a certain village, and you tell when your friends and family are visiting, you're like, hey guys, let me tell you a joke about this village called X, Y, and Z. Okay? Now, if this joke puts the people of X, Y, Z down, then this person is going to be in a very embarrassing, humiliated situation. Okay? So it's not a good thing to do because it would be putting people down. So unfortunately, many cultures have certain district or certain city or certain province or a certain ethnicity that lives within their country. Every culture has some jokes about them. Okay? Now, to the rest of the people, those are just jokes that are funny. But to the person who is the butt of those jokes, to them, it is humiliation. Okay? And just to think about it, that all of us, we are Muslim. If we go to like a school gathering and let's say we are in school in class and our professor tells a joke about how Muslims are so lazy. And they all just have a big laugh about it. How do we walk out of there? We're like, what do you mean? I mean, you would be offended. So in the same way, when people make jokes about, the upper part of the village or the lower part of the country or the mountain region or this region or that region, so we have to be careful about those things. Also, humiliation. Also, financial abuse. Financial abuse. Can anybody think of an example of what financial abuse would be like? Let's say the man is the abuser and he's abusing his wife financially. Not giving her money, okay? What is that? Okay. Okay, so yeah, so it could be like, using her as a kind of like a hostage to get money from her family, her friends, or things of that sort. So it could be things like confiscating her or his paycheck. It could be weaponizing spending. Okay, you know what weaponizing spending is? So let's say that husband and wife have an argument. Husband is the one that works and provides. The wife says, well, since I'm angry at you, I'm going on a shopping spree. Okay? and spends money on stuff which is wasteful. I mean, it could be the other way around. It could be the husband says, well, since you are the one that's responsible for all the household stuff, maybe he purposely goes and like breaks the fridge or something like that, saying, okay, the fridge broke, now you have to pay for it to get a new fridge. You know, things that people, when they are in that, you could say, when they're in that mood, they will stop at no ends, making her or him feel guilty that one provides for them. Okay, that you should be ashamed to talk back to me. You should be ashamed to raise your voice to me because I'm the one that spends on you and I take care of you and this and that. Now, the Prophet ﷺ, he spent on his wives, but he never told them, or he never basically shut down their disagreement with him. And he's the Prophet of Allah. If there's anyone that has the right to do so, it's him. But they disagreed with him. They argued with him as a husband and wife does. Okay? Also, another form of abuse is to block the other person's access to financial information. Okay? One person who has the financial power has all assets, money, bank accounts, this and that. The other person has no idea. Okay? This is one way to basically keep them in the dark and to keep them dependent on him or her, whichever the case is. Not providing for them, even if the person has the means to do so. Okay? So basically, purposely withholding basic needs and necessities. Also depriving her and the children of basic needs, food, clothing, shelter. Now, there's also forms of abuse in the intimate area of marriage. So, forced relations, right? Someone is maybe not feeling well, maybe someone is not feeling like it right now, but a person always comes, you could, imagine like an animal attacking something. Okay, it should not be like that. Also, depriving the other person as a strategy to control them. Okay, saying, no, I'm not going to engage in this because you don't listen to me when I tell you that, you need to be obedient to my mother, for example, right? So there is an element to it, which is sometimes you want to express the other person without hurting them. You want to express to the other person that, look, what you did hurt me. But abuse is more than that. It is weaponizing intimacy. During times, it is prohibited, or doing the act in an uncomfortable manner for the other person. Okay? There are certain times where it is prohibited for a person to engage in certain relations. But for a person to still insist on doing that would be a form of sexual abuse. Also, if the other person is not comfortable with what you want, and you're still forcing them to do it. Forced to watch pornography and then enacting it. This is unfortunately a disease that people, they watch stuff and then they go home and they say, do what this person is doing. Okay, now in pornography, it is not a real relationship. It is an acting. It's a performance. And in a real relationship, you don't expect a person to be like that. Okay, the two are very different, right? So for a person to expect that, okay, whatever I saw, number one, you shouldn't be watching. And number two is that you shouldn't be trying to have your spouse enact that. Because again, that's performance, it's cameras, it's lights, it's effects, it's editing, all of that stuff is going on there. It is not real. Then there are invisible forms of abuse. What are invisible forms of abuse? Number one is isolation from others. Okay? So some people, when they are wanting to control someone, one of their weapons is to make sure that this person doesn't talk to anyone else. They will watch their phone usage. They will control their phone usage. They will secretly spy on them to see who they are talking to. So, and they basically do whatever needs to be done to isolate them from other people, because then this person is just my victim, and whatever I do to them, it's going to stay between me and them, and they cannot tell anyone about it. So isolating the other person in this way, this is a very, very well-known tactic of the abuser. Instilling fear that if the person, the victim, chooses not, so that you scare them so much that they don't go out. Okay, you tell them, look, if you go out of the house, there are wild animals in this area, and there have been a number of bear attacks. Some woman stepped out of the house and the bear attacked her and killed her and stuff like that. So don't you dare go anywhere without me, okay? Or other forms of fear, like, the police will get you, the neighbors will report you, all sorts of stuff that people do in order to instill fear in people. Also, prohibiting certain relationships. Can you prohibit your wife, or can the wife prohibit her husband from meeting your family? Your mom, your dad, your brother, your sister. Can anybody do that? Shouldn't, but could they? They do that, but are they supposed to do that? Answer is no, because your relationship with your parents or with your siblings, it is an independent relationship of your relationship with your spouse. And your spouse's relationship with their parents and their siblings is an independent relationship of your marriage. Okay? Now, you can say, let's put some reasonable guidelines around it, okay? You shouldn't be talking to your mom and your sister for 12 hours a day, and the kids are hungry, the house is dirty, and nothing has happened because you were on the phone all day. No, that's unreasonable. But can they see each other from time to time? Can they visit each other? Can they talk on the phone in a reasonable manner? Absolutely. And no one has the power to prohibit you from doing that, even after marriage. Even after marriage, you cannot prohibit someone. But you could say what's reasonable is reasonable. Okay? How much do you think it's enough for a newly married woman to talk to her mom every day? What do you think? 30 minutes? An hour? 8 hours? 8 hours, no? Okay. 4 hours? Okay. All right. So now let me ask you this. Those of you who said 8 hours is not normal, okay? Your daughter just got married. She moved to a new land, new place. She doesn't know anybody there. Husband goes to work all day. She has no one to talk to. She feels lonely. So she calls your mom, she calls your wife, or you, the dad, and talks to you all day. Is that okay? That's an exception if it's your daughter? Okay. Yeah. So what should you as a parent tell your daughter? So a lot of times, it is actually the fault of the parents that they allow for such a thing to continue unreasonably. Okay? This could be that, okay, the first few weeks while she's adjusting. After that, the parent should have the maturity to tell them, okay, look, honey, daughter, before you call us, just make sure that you cook the food, clean the house, do the laundry, and then give us a call. Okay? And maybe talk to her for a little bit and say, look, maybe now you should get some rest, and be ready for when your husband comes home, so you could be fresh and you could pay attention and take care of whatever needs to be taken care of when your husband comes home, instead of you saying, oh, I'm just so tired, I was on the phone for 8 hours, now I need to take a nap. Okay? So the parents need to help their daughter adjust. Some parents, they go to the other extreme. They say, okay, you have gotten married, you are dead to us now. Don't call us again, don't visit us. And the idea that they're trying to tell her is that, look, make your home your home. That's what they're trying to tell her. But sometimes they go a little bit too much, right? So what's reasonable is reasonable. So invisible form of abuse is to prohibit a person to do such a thing. And I've seen both sides, by the way, where the husband is prohibiting wife from contacting her family in a reasonable manner, or the wife is prohibiting the husband from contacting his family. Now, how would you decide what is reasonable? What do you think? What is that? Obviously, you're probably not having a mutual understanding when you have an 8-hour versus 30-minute gap, right? So in this case, you may want to go to a third party, or maybe go and ask 2 or 3 different people, family, friends, other couples, young, old, everybody, and maybe take an average of the answer that you're getting and say, okay, look, this is reasonable. But again, the point here is not that. The point here is you cannot prohibit certain relationships. Certain relationships. Other relationships you can prohibit, okay? You get married and the wife they came from a home where the whole big family lived together. So her male cousins and they were very casual with each other, okay? Now you would say, okay, now we're married, he's a non-mahram to you, they can't come to our house when I'm not there, okay? They can't come to the house when you're alone. They can't call you, and you can't call them when I'm not there. If you want to call them, you want to talk to them, when I'm there, then we can call together and talk to them. You can catch up with them. I won't be like a thing. But basically, don't allow shaitan to start cracks that start to get bigger and bigger problem. Also, withholding affection. Okay, this is a form of abuse where you never give a compliment to the person. No matter what they do, they worked all day very hard to maybe cook something that you like, and you come home and you act like there was nothing happened, right? I told you that story, right, a few days ago, that this one sheikh, he went to a town and someone said, Sheikh, please come to my house and have dinner with us. So he accepted. He went to the house. Wife cooked the meal. Sheikh had it. He said, wow, this food is so good. He asked, did you cook this? He says, no, my wife cooked it. He said, can you please call her? I want to thank her. So she comes and the Sheikh says, sister, may Allah reward you. Your food is so good. I've never had food like this, all that type of stuff. And the sister starts to cry out loud, burst out crying. And the Sheikh said, I hope I didn't say anything offensive. I was just praising, and I really mean it. The food is really good. She said, I've been cooking the same food for him for 30 years, and he's never once complimented my food. So, withholding affection, right? Never showing signs of care. Now, do you necessarily have to say that, wow, your food is so good? You don't necessarily have to say that in those words, but you could say, you know what? Can I have another plate? Is it allowed to overeat in Islam? We just had the issue on body image, right? So actually the scholars say that if you go to someone's house who has invited you, and they have put their love into the food that they prepared for you, so you can actually eat a good amount to show them that you appreciate what they did for you. Okay, so with your wife, you normally eat 1 roti and salad, right? But this day you might say, can I have another one? Okay, if your wife she's taking care of you every day, she will know you like the food today, okay? But saying a little bit extra or doing something nice or saying, well, food was really good, so I brought your favorite flavor of ice cream today or something of that sort. Basically, these are different forms of compliment that a person should give. But no matter what a person does, you never ever show appreciation. This is a type of abuse as well. Why? Because that person starts to question themselves. They start to go crazy, like, I am going crazy to do something nice for this person, and this person doesn't say anything. That means that I didn't do anything, my work is not worth anything, all of that. So it can be. So the Prophet ﷺ teaches us, he's the best of example, to be kind and give kind words, compassionate words, compliments. Also ignoring, okay? So some people, a way to basically hurt someone is to pretend like they're not there. Silent treatment, okay? You're just coming in your house, you're doing your own thing. No relationship, no talk, no hangout, nothing. You come, you do your thing, and you go to your bed as if that person doesn't even live there, okay? So again, if you just had a hot argument last night, understandable for maybe a day or two while everybody's getting over, but this going on for years or months or years, it can be a form of abuse to the other person. Restricting behavior. Don't do this, don't do this. You can't do this, you can't go here, you can't do that. Basically, very, very controlling person, red flag, invisible form of abuse. Spiritual abuse. What do you think is spiritual abuse? Anybody? Spiritual abuse, because we don't have time, is to use the Quran and Sunnah to try to control someone and to get them to do what you want them to do. So labeling her or him as a bad Muslim if they didn't listen to you. Okay? Saying you're going to go to hellfire because you talk back to me. And the person is like, I'm not talking back to you, but I'm saying that you are forcing me to do something, and I'm saying I don't want to do that. No, you are going to go to hellfire for doing this. This is using spiritual evidences, texts of the Quran and Sunnah to control the other person. Telling her she's going to hell for correcting him or asserting herself. Misuse of hadith and Quran to manipulate spouse or child. Forcing or interfering with ibadah. Okay, so a person says, look, I'm gonna make salah, and the person says, no, you can't make salah, you have to come and fulfill my needs. Okay, and every time she wants to do that, that's what the other person says, and saying, don't you know the hadith that says that if your husband calls you, you're supposed to respond? So using spirituality as a weapon to control and hurt the other person. Also, putting people in ethical dilemmas, right? So a person is fasting, and the other spouse says, look, I want my needs fulfilled right now. Like, well, I'm fasting right now. Can we wait? No. And basically making the other person, have to make this choice, like, should I break my fast or should I disobey this? So these type of things, again, a good, healthy relationship should not even be anywhere close to this, right? It's mutual cooperation, understanding the other person's wants and desires, and if they are fasting, not interfering with that. But of course, a person could be excessively fasting. That's a different case. But being caring and considerate towards each other is a healthy relationship. Quickly, living with an abuser can destroy the sense of identity. The person who is being abused, the victim, whether they're, whoever it is, man, woman, child, they can start to feel stupid, worthless, and they start to feel like, I can't live without this person because I'm no good for anything else. So as a result, they start to accept that abuse. And it's very dangerous to do that to your children, because if you make your child trained to accept abuse, in their future life, if they marry someone who is abusive, they are basically trained to be a victim by you, the parent. Okay? Destroys self-esteem, impacts relationship with others, and it can also lead to physical illness. Okay? One of the most common signs of abuse going on in someone's house is, you know what? Anybody? Stomach pain, abdominal issues, okay? Bad stomach upset, constipation, diarrhea. Basically when you feel uncomfortable, one of the things that you feel is butterflies in your stomach, right? Gut feeling. So actually there is a thing that if a kid keeps complaining about stomach issues, they actually might open a case with CPS, Child Protective Services, saying we need to investigate this more because this child keeps having unexplained abdominal issues. Like there's no underlying condition, but they keep having this issue. So actually, stress can actually lead to physical illness. So they will actually have, God forbid, sometimes tumors develop due to a stressful situation that a person is living in, and they start to have blood pressure, diabetes, all of these type of things. Stress can really negatively affect actual physical health. You might say, I never even touched this person. You don't actually have to touch them to hurt them. You can do it with so many other ways. May Allah protect us and all of our family members and children. If you are a victim, please speak up. Contact an imam or contact any professional through phone, email, text, or elsewhere. Know that you are not meant to be miserable and it's not your fault. Husbands or parents, do not prevent your wives or your children from coming to the masjid and talking to the imam if they want to. Okay, allow them to do so. Conclusion, importance of premarital counseling. We would say that all of this stuff that we covered, inshallah, if a young person attends all of this, the chances of them running into these type of problems is very slim because they have been trained to look out for the red flags from day one and they know what to do about it. Also understand that divorce has been made a way out by Allah. Okay, so if a person is in a miserable situation, Islam does not say you have to live with it until you die. But Islam has given us a way out. It should not be used easily. But if there's no better option than that, then that is the best option. And that is something that Allah has allowed and given us regulations and guidance about it in the Quran. Islam teaches us, live happy or leave happy. Okay, this is a good marriage. If you are not able to live together in a happy home, if you're not able to make it work, then at least don't make your lives miserable for each other. Leave, say, okay, you know what, things are not working out, let's leave on a good note. Even sometimes you say that, okay, it's just we can't live in this, but we have kids together. Sometimes the best case scenario might be that you say, okay, you know what, us living together, we are causing more problems for our kids. So maybe we need to call it quits and say, you know what, we will protect them in a different way, which is you go your way, I go my way, so we're not constantly fighting, we're not constantly doing all of this bad stuff in front of them. Also, negative effect on children's faith. This is a very important point, which is children who come from background homes where there is a lot of abuse. These children, what they do is that they equate Islam to their home environment. Okay? They say, if Islam is so good, and my parents who used to pray 5 times a day, why were they so bad to each other? It must mean that Islam is bad. This is what shaitan is playing in their mind. So I tell every parent that no matter what your disagreements are, please, please, please don't argue and fight in front of your kids. Talk about it in a private way and keep your kids out of it. Never tell your kids to be against your spouse. Don't turn your kids against each other, because you will never win, your spouse will never win, your kids will end up becoming separated and broken away from both of you, and also from the religion as well. So we'll stop here. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik, nashhadu an la ilaha illa ant, nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Those who are late, inshallah, I will mention a note about the importance of today's class in the last 2